Born in Mount Bayou, founder of Kuumba Theatre, dramatist, historian, actor, director, producer. I do dancing. I can certainly cook sweet potato like no one in the world. Oh God, I'm a healer. Poet and avid reader. Oh, I read more than avid. Educator, activist, mentor. Two dogs and then Legos. You know about them, huh? I sure like fishing. Mother, wife, grandmother. Kuumba would not have existed so long had it not been for my family, my husband, my children. We have 12 principles. And the first one says that we're an African people bound together worldwide as an African family by race, culture, and common oppression. It took us maybe a month to put the 12 principles together, but they're very, very, very important. I do a one-woman show where I do 17 characters. And one of the pieces that I do that called me the voice of the Black writer, that's what I was known prior to giving birth to Kuumba. I do James Weldon Johnson's sermons. Two of the pieces that I'm really famous for is the creation and go down death. James Weldon Johnson wrote the seven sermons when he was a professor at Fisk University. He said that he and his brother on Sundays would go into the rural areas of Nashville and listen to, quote, country preachers. When I was born and reared in Mount Bayou, and I was taught the creation. And God stepped out on space. Looked around and said, I'm lonely. Whenever Kuumba did the church, we did the Black church. Amen Corner did Sister Margaret. And I was fortunate enough to become very, very close to James Baldwin. We became friends. There's a piece in Esquire magazine. There was a festival at Lincoln Center.
The gospel church is a theme running through much of Baldwin's work. His father was a minister, and Baldwin himself became a preacher at the age of 13. His play, The Amen Corner, shown in revival at Lincoln Center's Black Theatre Festival, was drawn from his own experiences in the pulpit.
We got tremendous praise. We had done it in Chicago, and Baldwin had been out to see it. The New York Times gave us a review and said, this is what Black theater must be and must do. We did so many plays, and we started off doing ritual where people would have to read the newspaper, read history, and then we would put together the production that would be played like 2 weeks from now. And so what was really wonderful, you didn't know who was sitting beside you or what was going to happen next. Well, one of the reasons was that was the size of the play, the Southside Arts Center at 3831 South Michigan. That's famous today. And that was Kuumba's second home because it was founded at my house. Then I got a chance to go. And that's why it was so small. So when we created the ritual, somebody would just jump up and start singing or performing and sitting beside you. But that was part of the wonderful, wonderful parts of Kuumba. In the one woman show, I tried to take people back for those pieces of literature that happened a long time ago. I'm out of the loins of Africa, snatched bloody from her womb. I am black and angry and beautiful and black. Look at me. I am the singer and the song, the player and the music, the dreamer and the dream. Listen to me. Once riding in old Baltimore, head filled and heart filled with McLean, I saw a Baltimore looking straight at me. Now, I was 8 and very small, and he was nowhere bigger, and so I smiled. And he poked out his tongue and called me nigger. I remember the whole of Baltimore from our May until December. But of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. We do different characters and different people and just put that literature all together. I have a piece that I did for television called Precious Memories, Strolling 47th Street. And what we were able to do, I had this concept. I created this piece that I'm telling you about. And this talks about 47th Street in Chicago before integration. That was the main thoroughfare that Black people, the Regal Theatre, like the Apollo in Harlem, every community, Kansas City, everyone, New Orleans had one. And so 47th Street was a place, and the Regal Theatre is where these Black people played. And up and down 47th Street, oh, there was music, there was everything. On Sunday after church, people used to dress their children up and walk them down that street. We recreated that. It had these wonderful, wonderful, wonderful musicians who could play downtown, but they couldn't entertain there. They couldn't go and take their family. They couldn't even use the toilet in that place. Now, Val couldn't have played at that time, but I was able to record them. And I allowed them to tell that story on the documentary. And then we recreated what it was like. It won more awards for Channel 11 here in Chicago. That's where it was recorded than they had ever received. There were 21 people and all of them have image. All those musicians are dead now, but I allowed them to not only tell the story, but then play for us. Julie Ann Richardson, who founded the History Makers. I used to do a play called The Image Makers. That was about Black exploitation films. That and Amen Corner was probably our greatest plays, right? Julie came as a board member to Kuumba, but then afterwards, so if you look it up, she'll say, My mentor, she is my mentee,
Mm-hmm.
is Val Gray Ward. I think she set up the greatest archive for Black people that ever existed.
Do you realize the seeds that you've planted, Val? And I think you probably do realize, and then you're seeing them grow.
It has been reciprocal. Lucelle Fitzpatrick from Trinidad, you know. She has done so much just in the brief time. And where did I meet her? Down at Wintergreen. I brought that quilt for Nikki's. They were celebrating Nikki and Baba too, my son. You'll meet Baba too. Got me out of the bed to bring me down to JMU. Everybody talking, oh, Val is so great and Val has done this. It has been reciprocal.
Yeah.
And it has been a gift from the ancestors and God. Whoever I am, whatever I am. It's people like you and Lucelle and the next generation and the information that she's teaching and who she is and who you are. Val is just an ancestral extension. Joanne did Furious Flower. I stayed 6 weeks in there helping her put that together. One of my people from Kuumba poured the libation. Then there was Baraka, and then there was Gwendolyn. Nikki and Sonia, I've known them so long. You know that quilt. When Gwendolyn Brooks was my best friend, but she was my mother's age, but we were still like real. She was also one of my mentors and best friends. And when Gwendolyn wrote her memoir, which is called Report from Part 1, after she finished that, she said, Val, you must write your memoir. You have too many stories. She said, you must write your memoir. And I said, I'm going to quilt. She looked at me and said, girl, what do you know about quilting? I said, nothing. I only knew what I saw as a child. And I realized that after I made the quilt. But I worked on that quilt for over 40 some years. One day, my son, Baba too, was building our set. He said, Ma, I gotta get down and go get a piece of canvas. I said, oh, no, you just keep hammering, doing what you're doing. I'll go get the canvas. And he said, no, but you don't know the kind of canvas I need. So I went to the store not far and I came back with the canvas. He said, I knew it. That is not the canvas I need. So he climbed down from where he was and somehow I popped that out like you do a sheet. And something about that canvas, God intended that to be that quilt, because that's what that is. There's a little white something with a blue dot in a circle, I balled that up and I cut that piece of costume. The white was my daughter. That was her white costume. And that blue, that young lady is dead today. And I balled that up and I took a piece from the sewing room where we did the costume and I sewed that piece. And that was the beginning of that quilt. All of these years, I put the names, I put people, like Oprah gave Maya a birthday party for her 80th birthday. And Maya had 600 people from around the world, so was my closest friend. And I brought that tassel home from that party and I sewed it in that quilt. Nikki Giovanni, I got her a piece of her great grandmother's tablecloth. And I can tell you exactly because right where it is, it's in there by that Gwendolyn Brooks piece. I can point to all of that. My mother loved butterflies. I don't know how those butterflies, people say, how did butterflies get in your quilt? I didn't realize when those butterflies got in there. When I tell you that centerpiece, that 1977 Black People Festival from all Black people from around the world, right? And of course, we were one of the companies that was to perform. We performed and I brought that calendar back. And that calendar just became the center of that quilt. It's made up of love. It is historical now.
It's so beautiful.
Well, thank you. And I'm adding some pieces now. My son said, they don't take this away. My mama, when she died, she was stacking pieces on top of pieces. Before I went to Vestac, there was a conference given in Dar es Salaam. It was a conference that Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois and Nkrumah had this organization, but they never had a conference on the continent because the continent was not free, including Ghana. But we were, me, Haki, Larone, Baraka, I think 20 some artists was invited from around the world. Again, I was fortunate enough to be one of those. We attended that conference. At the end of it, you were invited by the countries that were free, where people could have you. And so we chose Uganda. So when we got to the airport, he gave us, I think it was 10 or 11 acres of land. He gave us a passport, and I do want to find that and put it in that quilt. That was one of the most important things I can remember in my life. The back of that quilt, not only is some of the pieces that you will see on this side, but the whole back of that quilt is from Uganda and from that factory. I didn't know that's what it was or what it was going to be, but that's what it is. And then the source of the Nile. Those brothers, 3 brothers, and Val Ward was taken to the source of the Nile, where the Nile runs just like that quilt out into Africa. Each of us, I guess, fell on our knees and cried and prayed. I can't tell you what it was like. I would just tell you it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. When I got up the river, I started Langston. I've known Rip, and that brother Gary Bart started blowing it because he had his trumpet. He came back to the States and recorded it. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the river. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. That's the way it happened. I'm telling you, just the way it happened.
Sometimes we never realize how amazing our journey is until we look back at it. And sometimes maybe we realize it in the moment, but sometimes it takes us to look back.
We couldn't believe that we were there and that it was happening to us. Yeah. And when they took us to this place called Ginger, we didn't even know that it was the source of the Nile until we were there, and then we were told. And then we would just go to look at each other and fall down on our knees. Matter of fact, Adias and I were going to baptize each other until the hippopotamus opened their mouths. Oh, Jesus. And people are saying, no, it's just that, no. And, oh, my Lord, that almost scared us to death. I was then afraid to get out on the yacht. We just didn't know then. I mean, it was just unreal what we were going through, what we felt. I had no connection with white people until I came to Chicago. We played basketball in the white towns, the Black schools, because there was no integration then. I did oratoricals as a child. What was wonderful, you learned of Langston Hughes because we had Black newspaper called The Advocate. Your bank, your post office, your school, your train station,
Mm.
your drugstore.
Mm.
All we were reared with all of that
Mm.
being Black. When young people would come home to see their grandparents because they had lived in the North or were born and reared there.
Mm.
Oh boy, I thought Chicago, that's where people are freer than we are.
Mm.
That's what I thought. When I came north, and then Black people lived separate from white people, any other people. The only freedom I know they had was riding on the streetcar, but I don't know of them anything else, because Black people lived in one neighborhood, they lived in another. I had no idea that I was going to do this quilt.
Yeah.
I couldn't sew. There was a group of quilters out of Alabama. I had admired quilts, and I had read of people singing songs. And when I did my research to do Harriet Tubman, I found that the people would quilt, and they'd say, just follow the Northern Star, Eastern Star. My grandmother and these ladies, my father's mother, used to sit around this quilt that they let down out of the ceiling. My father's mother lived on the farm. I remember the ladies sitting around, and they would sit around there, and my grandmother would make tea cakes, they're called. And she made some peppermint grew wild outside of her house. And she made me a cup of tea.
Oh.
And I sat in the swing. She had a swing on her porch.
Yeah.
And these ladies, that's when they got together, and they would be sewing, and they would be quilting.
Wow.
And I saw that in my mind's eye. And I told Rhonda, I said, wait a minute, play that again. Play it again was Roberta, Grandma's Hands, right? Left the church on Sunday morning, she said, Grandma's hands played a tambourine so well. Grandma used to issue out a warning. She said, Gladys, don't you run so fast. Fall on a piece of glass. Might be snakes there in the grass, Grandma. So we started to play that. And then I remembered, that's when I remember she never taught me how to quilt. Nobody taught me how to quilt. Nobody, those little pieces. And somebody sent me some other little piece. And I put that in it. And I guess I got really good. But I wouldn't know how, if somebody took all of those pieces today and said, Val, we want you to put this together. And this is what Val would know to do it. And people calling it a great piece of art and a great piece of this. My memoir, that's what it is. People used to make quilts out of old clothes, and they were made to keep you warm. People also talked in those quilts because when they couldn't say words, when they came from Africa, I'm told, and they would make this, they would be telling people which way to go. Do you know the name of the quilt? Peace the Way Home. P-E-A-C-E, the way home. My best girlfriend, we had to be in our own yard by 6 o'clock. We used to play horseshoe. We used to play croquettes. We used to play ring around what roses, whatever. Double Dutch, jumping double Dutch. By 6 o'clock, you'd have to be in your own yard before the sun went down. Between her house and my house is the railroad track. So we'd walk from the railroad tracks to her house. Next would be my house, back to her house. And so we would look, and the sun was just about, so then she'd have to go home and I would have to go home. I always wanted to do the word peace and the word peace EICE, Way Home. I wanted to do both. And then a friend of mine called, and when I told him, I said, oh, Peace the Way Home. And they said, well, do you know there's a book? The last time I was at Wintergreen, all of these women were saying, oh, my grandmother used to say that. Or when I was out to my grandmother's, that's how we walked Peace the Way Home. You know, I was reared in this town and been doing drama all my life, and I still wanted to do it. And I had been learning, and I was had my own way of teaching drama. And then I started to go around the world, and I had these experiences in East Africa, West Africa, Australia, Japan, and these places. I'm honored that you asked me. I hope that we will, as long as I live, that we will stay in touch. I'm just a continuation of those people who came. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Trinidad or you're in Chicago or you're in Mississippi, Mount Bio. I'll be praying for you. I will remember that your story, and you must share your books with me. I love the story you told about your grandmother. I hear your voice. I understand. I truly understand. Mari Evans was also one of my best and closest friends. I am a Black woman. The music of my song, some sweet arpeggio of tears, I can be heard humming in the night. I lost Nat's swinging body in a rain of tears and heard my son scream all the way from Anzio for peace. He never knew. I learned Da Nang and Pork Chop Hill in anguish. My nostrils know the gas, and these trigger tired fingers seek the softness in my warrior's beard. I am a Black woman, tall as a cypress, strong beyond all definition, still defying time and place and circumstance. A sail, impervious, indestructible. Look on me and be renewed. Mari Evans, Val Gray Ward. Thank you, and God bless and keep you.